Okay, I am working side hustles to earn extra money to spend on sports gambling. What? I mean, really, what? As I think about this one, to kind of frame this, I was at work and I was actually eating my lunch, or it was my lunchtime, and I was in the break room, and there were some young coworkers that I work with, and they were all talking, and it kind of seemed like they were talking about sports, but at the same time they were talking about betting and how they were betting, and I couldn't totally hear the conversation. So after a while, I just had to ask them, "Are you talking about sports betting?" And they were like, "Yes, that's what we're talking about." And they were talking about getting extra side hustles, things like, driving Uber or delivering food like Uber Eats and things like that, so that they could concentrate on sports gambling. Think about this. I think about it when I suggest a side hustle to folks. When I suggest maybe they start selling things on platforms like Amazon, Etsy, or eBay and do those extra things, it's sometimes hard to get them to even consider that above and beyond what they're already doing on their job. But here these young people are ready to do those things, or eager to do those things in order to participate in sports gambling. Just to give you a few stats, I'm going to be looking down here at my phone a little bit to collect these because I don't have them right in my head, but 53% of young adults bet on sports gambling online. 53% of young adults bet on sports gambling online. Here's another stat. The average household that participates in sports betting gambles an average of $1,100 per year. $1,100 per year being spent on sports gambling. That's a crazy stat. That 53%, I believe is what it said, 53% of young adults bet on sports online. I mean, for me, that's hard to digest, because this is something, whenever you're gambling, that is just like almost taking money and just rolling the dice and throwing the dice down there. There's another thing that I think about, okay? Being black, I'm black. I'm married to a lady who's Hispanic that I've been married to now 30 years. I live here in the Rio Grande Valley, okay? I believe the stat is that 91.5% of the population here in the Rio Grande Valley is Hispanic. So it's north of 91%, okay? So there are some statistics around these groups, these ethnic groups, blacks and Hispanics, Latinos, okay? Just to kind of look here on my phone, if you'll bear with me. I have to find this stat. Okay, now when we're talking about sports gambling, 68% of Black and African American respondents in a survey engaged in betting activities, the highest among the demographics surveyed. Other races, Hispanic and Latinos, 63%, Asians, 55%, and white or Caucasian, 54%, okay? So 68% of blacks in the survey were betting on sports. 63% of Hispanic and Latinos, 55% of Asians, and 54% of whites. The tough part in these statistics is that blacks and Hispanics or Latinos are at the bottom of wealth building, at the very, very bottom of wealth building, okay? When you look at something like that, where you're at the bottom of wealth building, yet you're at the top of sports gambling, this is really backwards, okay? You have the least bit of wealth being accumulated amongst blacks and Hispanics, yet you have the highest amount of sports gambling. Okay, there's another little statistic, okay, that I find interesting. I'm kind of paging through here to find it, okay, on my phone. But blacks and Hispanics spend up to 30% more than whites of comparable income on visible goods like clothing, cars, and jewelry, researchers found. This meant that compared to white households of similar income, the typical black and Hispanic household spent $2,300 more per year on visible items. They said cars, clothing, and jewelry. So again, you have in this blacks and Hispanics spending 30% more on these goods that actually go down in value. These are liabilities, they're not assets. They're spending 30% more than the comparable white household. Okay, again, when you look at statistics like this, where blacks and Hispanics are at the bottom of wealth building, yet they're at the top of consuming these visible goods, these goods that everyone can see. This is the tough part. You can't see wealth. It's not like you're walking around with your net worth or your assets showing on you. But you certainly can show clothes or a car. So we get, unfortunately, I think, into this flexing mentality where we want to show people that we're successful rather than actually being successful. Looking good rather than being good. And this is a very, very unfortunate thing, especially for the groups that I discussed, blacks and Hispanics. Now, I'm one who equally believes that it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. You still want to look at, are you concentrating on building assets rather than building liabilities? However, when you have groups who are at the bottom of wealth building, I think it is upon me to do what I can to change that and do my little part to hopefully help blacks and Hispanics to change that statistic. You know, I'm walking by homes right now. And just to use a little analogy, let's say that I was like a fire inspector. I'm someone with a fire department, and I'm going by here and I'm knocking on doors and I'm talking to the residents here about having their home ready for fire prevention. I'm going to the door and I'm talking to them about smoke alarms and maybe having fire extinguishers and things like that, okay? And I'm going from house to house, and let's say that 10 houses down, a house is on fire. Okay, do I continue just knocking on the doors and talking to these people, or do I need to attend to that fire down there? I probably need to go ahead and attend to the fire. I need to call 911 and get some folks out there to rescue, or some firefighters out there to rescue that home that's on fire. And I kind of see it that way with the black and Hispanic communities being at the bottom of wealth building. It's urgent that this population be educated to have financial literacy. And so I want to do my small part to do that. Again, it doesn't matter what ethnic group you're actually a part of. This information is good, and there's certainly quite a bit of, how do I put this, lack of financial literacy amongst all ethnic groups. But again, if you're part of the ethnic group that again and again, statistically, blacks and Hispanics or Latinos who are at the bottom of wealth building, again, it's kind of like the 4-alarm fire that's occurring financially And again, I hope that I can do a little piece to help to change that. Okay, so let me talk for a moment to those who are actually doing these things. They're sports gambling. And on top of that, we talked about that statistic, 30% more of blacks and Hispanics tend to buy these visible goods, cars, clothing, jewelry, things like that. If you find yourself in that category, and I just can't convince you not to participate in that. It's just a drive for you. It's something that you enjoy. Well, consider these things. Again, we're going to jump back to the basics. Ask yourself, do you have an emergency fund? Do you have $2,000 at least, is my suggestion, that you can actually access in case there is a quick emergency? Have you gone to your human resource or your secretary where you're at work, if you have a retirement plan like a 401k, and are you making sure that you're taking advantage of that match? Have you looked at your consumer debt, like credit cards and things like that? Have you eliminated that? Okay. Do you have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses put away in something like a high yield savings account, just in case you're the victim of a layoff or something like that, a major emergency? Do you have 3 to 6 months worth of income set aside? Okay. Of living expenses rather, set aside. Okay. Are you at least at that point? And then I would throw on top of that, are you investing for your retirement future? If you're not doing any of those things, I suggest that sports gambling should be 0% of your budget. You should have 0 going there, okay? Now, let's say that you are to the point to where you've done all those things I'm talking about and you're at the investing point. My suggestion would be to put no more than 5% towards sports gambling. What does that look like? If you're investing $100 per week, then no more than $5 should be going towards sports gambling, okay? If you're investing $1,000 a month, then no more than $50 should go towards sports betting, okay? Now, the statistics that we talked about before, I bet there's a lot of folks who are doing a lot more than that. But I would keep it at a minimum or not at all. But again, I'm not going to be able to convince everybody of that. But think about this. If you're not in a position to where you're building wealth, if you're not taking care of your future, okay, I wouldn't be sports betting, okay? Plus, I look specifically at the Black and Latino community. We have an opportunity to help educate these fabulous young people who are Black and Latino, and every ethnicity. But again, when you're at the bottom of the wealth building, it's, in my opinion, more urgent to try and get this information to them. Because, like I said, they're fabulous youth. Much of the youth that I work with are Hispanic youth. They're exceptional. They're great young people. They just need information. They just need maybe some of us adults or some of us who have gotten a little bit further along the path and have done some things with wealth building. They just need the information. And that's what I'm going to try and do. So I would say the same to you. If you're starting to go on a path to where you're building wealth, to where you've gotten control of your finances, share that information. Maybe it's this video that you share, especially, like I said, with those who are at the bottom of wealth building, Blacks, African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, but any youth of any ethnicity. Help them out. Give them the information so that their future, their financial future, can be much brighter. Thanks again for listening.